My name is Robert McKinna, and over the past 10 plus months I've been completing my final year design project at Loughborough University. But on top of all of that, I've been recording every step of the way because I want to take you on a journey, showing you both the highs and the lows of my project and how it has developed over the past 10 months. But most importantly, I want to show the world how using inclusive design can empower so many social minority groups, including those with MS. So sit back, relax, and join me on my journey through Project Phoenix. Awesome stuff. So I'm going to continue with progressing my electronics side of things just to prove the functionality really of it and prove it to myself and make sure that it actually works. So the first thing that we're doing is we've got our breadboard, we've got our little temperature sensor here, just needs a third wire, and we've also got our Arduino. So hopefully going to put this stuff together and see what happens from it, and fingers crossed it should hopefully work. And I'm hoping it accurately reads, even just from putting it on my hand or something like that, the temperature that I will need to measure. Fingers crossed. So what has happened is, whilst I was playing around with the electronics, unfortunately the LCD screen isn't coming up with anything, which I suspect means that I got my soldering wrong. And since I don't have a soldering iron to hand, the only option I really have is to read it through Arduino's serial monitor. So of course you can see here, this is in Fahrenheit, which is, before anybody goes, why is it 67 degrees Celsius in your room? So this is in Fahrenheit, and hopefully we'll see if I apply my skin temperature, that hopefully it'll start to go up. There we go. Yeah, it's shooting up now. Perfect. So this is exactly what we need, and we need this kind of temperature. So I've taken my hand off now, so it should decrease. Yeah. There we go, and it's starting to go back down now. Excellent. So this is exactly what we want to happen to make sure that the temperature system works for when reading somebody's actual core temperature, which is something I'm still exploring as well. Whether that is done through heat flux measurement or whether it's done via something else. Maybe illustrates it better. So this is a sports vest that's used by footballers for heart rate monitoring. Yeah. So these bits touch your skin on your torso. So that's probably more like what it would feel like, just not thick. It could be a lot thinner.
This feels alright.
That's similar material to this.
No.
So that is got something over the top of it to make it a bit softer than that.
Okay.
But it's the whole point of that, it just needs to be in contact with you, otherwise.
Yeah, it'd work if it's doing what. I mean, I'm looking at this and thinking bodies of it all over your body.
Yeah.
No, it is just something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I need to make it more like that. Whilst you're thinking, so this is the most recent prototype I've made. So this is just a prototype vest, but this is more to work out sizing, because this is the outer layer. So I know that this fits me, but what I need to know is whether it fits you or not. So whether I need to make this bigger. So that's a size medium. How much bigger do I need?
So probably large, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Plus I like my stuff more baggy anyway, so probably large.
Yeah.
Probably could fit into medium, but I just like it makes it large.
And another thing that I was considering, which is maybe more for yourself, Iram, is so if this was for more than just Balraj and it was for more individuals with MS, would it be better if, per se, on the garment it wasn't put on as something that you just put over the top of your head, that in fact there is Velcro
openings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where would you want those openings? Would it be easier if they're down the side, down the front?
Depends. If someone's putting it on you, that'll be different to if you put it on yourself.
Yeah.
I always think, oh, I got one arm that works, so I'd have to think, how would I work it?
Yeah.
Tell you, if you've got two arms that are working, in theory, maybe down the lats, So you got a front.
Yeah.
And you got a back that sticks from here.
Like a zip sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but is it Velcro?
Well, yeah, so the kind of things I'm looking at is poppers, Velcro, magnets. So whatever would be easiest for you. So it's like this sort of thing. So they just...
Oh, yes.
together.
Okay, no. Velcro over them.
Okay.
Velcro over there, or magnets, super thin ones.
Yeah. And then with adjustability as well. So this is what would go on the inner layer. So the reason why there's two poppers here is this is how heart rate monitors clip on. So usually this goes on your torso, and because the inside is touching, it then is able to pick up your heart rate because there's conductive fabric on the inside. And that then goes to where you clip on a heart rate monitor. And that's what I'm proposing can be done with the central panel like bit that you have clipped on when you're running or in the gym. But one thing I'm trying to work out is, so this is currently how it attaches. It's done by this system. So very similar to a bra in like how you adjust the shoulder straps and go like that. Is that okay? Or would something more like Velcro be better for you to just whack it on?
Velcro for that.
I'd say Velcro as well.
And this is a prototype of the inner layer itself. Basically what I'm trying to simulate is the pockets that you can see on the front and on the back. That would be the areas of where cooling would happen. And also, more importantly, I kind of want to know, this back pocket that you can see, that's where the battery would be. So I'm trying to understand of where would be the best place to have weight, because it would be about 300 grams. There or thereabouts, where would be best.
And the back. And I reckon it'd be back of a shoulder.
But one thing with that as well, so with the inclusivity aspect, do you ever find, probably more in your case, Aaron, that with your sight, is that ever affected, say when you're using your iPad or trying to
We get, MS sufferers get osteoneuritis.
Optic neuritis, yeah, back of the eyes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a nerve issue with the eye. A lot of people get that. And I have had it. I'm kind of getting it right now. But it's comes and goes.
Might be just MS, obviously, like light sensitivity in the sense of like sometimes I'm there and I'm just like you said, when you went outside as well, you think, oh, because I'm always exposed. Even when I come home to it, at times when there's too much light, I have to really like put it low, like to the lowest, just a tiny bit of light.
Just tone it down.
Yeah.
Tone it down.
Yeah. Just like, you know, like you sometimes when you go on websites, sometimes they have like an option where it's like you can choose beforehand like what kind of settings you want, or like you can choose it inside. You know, sometimes you go on websites. Yeah, dark. See, I use dark mode, so like when I'm on laptop or well, not at the moment, just maps, but
just tone it down.
In terms of the central panels of it that go on the centre of your torso, I'm struggling a little bit in terms of aesthetic direction of like where I want to go with it. It's more of similar to what's already out there, like Garmin health trackers of this sort of lozenge-like shape, very modern. That's more of a safe bet, and then something that's a bit more out there is this kind of design, which is more angular, more rugged. Most likely go just in the centre. So it's kind of.
I like this shape.
Like that shape.
yeah, I like that one.
I like the feel of the shape.
It's like even theirs, I like, you know, you're just there, like, you know, sometimes with the circular sort of shape. So yeah, just tap, feel like Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that feels more powerful.
You know, like in here, how you put like the breathability vents. You know, sometimes you get in like some designs as well. Like it's, I don't know if you've ever seen it. You know, sometimes they actually do put things like that on the actual vest, like you know, like little designs, and that, you know what, that would be cool. You know, actually.
I'm considering doing that.
Like the design there. Yeah, like sometimes, you know, like Under Armour or Nike. You know, like sometimes they have like any. Wow,
Do
like
you feel like Usain Bolt?
Yeah, you're just like, well, I'm not a Usain Bolt, but you know what? In my head, I am. Yeah, one of them ones in the gym, just doing like it's like 10 speed for once. And you're like, when you wear it, you just think like, whoa. In the branding of it, that's obviously more brand now.
Awesome stuff. Really appreciate you guys
No, we appreciate what you're doing. It's really good.
Yeah, Rob, hats off.
That's right. It's sick.
So, I had a fantastic day yesterday with Balraj and Iran. They're absolute legends. Really helped me in terms of giving some user feedback, of being able to show me, okay, where do I need to go with my prototyping and my work going forward. But one thing that I want to kind of investigate fully, just to make sure I fully understand how it will be, is what actually is the circuitry and the electronics that needs to go into the central panel sort of bit. So the best way I've done it is on eBay you can get spare parts and broken parts. So this is a polar heart rate monitor, which is usually worn on your chest, but it is broken. But that means it's still got all of the componentry on the inside, which would then have the heart rate monitor, which we don't need the heart rate monitor, but it's close to resembling what would be used for measuring your body temperature in terms of size of components. But also it will have the componentry, importantly, for Bluetooth and being able to connect this to your phone and it being able to track your data. So this can be really influential in terms of working out, okay, what kind of sizing can I go for to make sure I can fit all of my components within the central panel. So I've unscrewed the back, so there were some screws on the back, and when you do that it actually reveals everything that is inside. This is actually the cover which goes over the top, which you can see is all very well done and injection molded and has its screw bosses and everything for it. And so that, I suspect, is there for one, to protect the electronics, but also because of the fact that this product needs to be able to deal with people that are exercising. So that's something I need to consider in terms of being able to protect the electronics. And this is the actual circuit board itself and the circuitry that is in there. And one thing that did fall out when I was unpacking it is the battery. So this is the battery that consequently must charge everything, which I believe sits here when it's in its holder. So yeah, this is the circuit board overall. I'm not entirely sure what every part is for, but I know for a fact at least it gives me a sense of direction of what is important and what is going to be important for me to consider, of the size of components and the stuff that needs to go within my own circuit board and my own electronics componentry. So one thing that I've been considering since I had a chat with Balraj and Iran again was I had a chat with Iran and Balraj and asked them about what they wanted to feel when they were using the product, because I think so much of the emotional side of the product is going to lean into how the aesthetics then are, and more importantly of how the branding is and how that then consequently will make you feel. And the big thing that kept coming up was like they wanted to feel as though they were empowered and wanted to feel as though it was kind of superhero like in a way, of that this thing that they're using is really cool. And one thing when we were just talking about names that Iran came up with was the name Phoenix, which I think is absolutely brilliant, because I've actually heard Phoenix being used in disability related projects before, because it's all about being able to rise from the ashes and being resilient and being powerful and being able to be like a phoenix. And I think really that's the overall embellishment of what this project is all about. And so I've gone with the word Phoenix, and then started to go down a route of exploring with different logos to try and see if I can grab the essence of what we're trying to go for, and also something that I know in the back of my head is a kind of sport and running brand. So I've done a little bit of ideation. So just initially I was going through some different styles and different styles of wings. I wanted to make sure that it had something angular to it, because I've realised through talking with Balraj and Iran that they don't want something that's too modern, and they don't want something that's too smooth or something that's too just flowy. They want something that actually stands out a bit more, that's more angular, a bit more ruggedness about it, something that shows off the power that the product has. And so I'm trying to make sure that that reflects with the logo. So even this was something that I quite liked, but I realized that it wasn't strong enough. It didn't have enough empowerment behind it. It was a bit too much like a gamer's kind of logo in a way. And it was a similar thing with this, and I started to play around with the blue and using different colours. And then this was quite interesting. It was something that I thought was going in the right direction, but unfortunately I really struggled to kind of get it to actually flow better together, especially with these parts here, of how that balances up and the fact that it just doesn't have the balance that's correct really for if this logo was to be used. And then something like this was a bit too aggressive and a bit also too simple as a shape. It just wasn't that interesting as a shape overall. And this was getting a little bit closer, but still a bit too floaty and not really the powerful side of being a phoenix. And then this really, for me personally, when I created it, it kind of just instantly hit the money of what I was expecting in my head and what I was looking for. And so I started to play around with what it would look like with different colors, considering the backgrounds, how does this look on fabric, and also just how it looks with different gradients and different colors. And I think overall, this is the logo I'm most likely going to go forward with. I've already had some feedback from Balraj and Iran, and they love it. So we're gonna play around with this and go forward with this and see where it takes us and how that shapes aesthetics and everything going forward.
So today's been a long day, been making lots of different CAD models. I'm experimenting with the overall aesthetic of what the central panel will look like. And so been exploring different types of models, but ultimately the easiest way for me to actually see what stuff looks like in real life is to actually have it in my hands. And so I'm going to 3D print some of the models that I've made, the ones that I like and even the ones that maybe I dislike, just to see what it actually looks like in real life, and then that can lead me to a better conclusion in terms of where I need to go with the aesthetic direction. I know that at least if I get this done, that I can see what I think about them and then iterate and hopefully go from there, and then see what kind of aesthetic direction I actually want to go in and where I want it to go with the models. So gonna do some 3D printing now, got myself some filament, and yeah, let's hope it works first time. So the 3D printer is finished and we've printed off some different models to test of going around the chest area and what that will potentially look like. I went for some different directions, hence why some of them are a bit outlandish and a bit crazy. So this is one of the more crazy ones in terms of this shape. And that was just because I wanted to kind of follow a similar logo design of what I'm thinking of for the branding of Phoenix. Now, of course, it's quite bad because this would quite literally stab into your chest, but I thought it was worth printing at least so that I could see it in real life and see what I thought about it. The other kind of design direction was something a bit more mellow in this, which I feel like there is something in the shape of this one that is quite interesting and I think could denote towards what the final design will be. But other than that, it is a bit bland and it's a bit boring. And I know that what Balraj and Iran said that they want is something that feels empowering. It feels a bit like a superhero style thing, and that just doesn't feel like it's got it. It hasn't got that little extra panache about it. Then this was another direction which was similar to what I had done previously. And this was looking at a really angular version, which has come out okay, but I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's not entirely come out the way that I thought it would. It also, from speaking to a friend, they mentioned a comment of the fact that it does stick out quite far. And so that could be quite frustrating when you're trying to exercise and wearing this. So I think it feels as though it's a combination between this one and the previous concept that I showed you. So yeah, I'm going to develop the designs further and see what I come up with and hopefully develop the form a little bit further. So the central panel is starting to come together. So it's just finished the printer, literally just now, finished printing this newer shape, which I actually quite like. So when you look at it in the light, it actually has all the different faces, which is quite nice of being angular and a mix of the fillets, which are giving it that softer feel as well. As it sits on your chest, it looks as though it's pretty, like it fits in well in terms of its context of where it's going. It's not going to annoy anybody. It's not going to be pushing on anything. But I think there are little things I want to play with a bit more. Like, for example, the sides. So if you look at the side there, that angle currently is quite sharp, I think, and I'd want to explore how is that if it's not as sharp in terms of its aesthetic, and how does that affect it. And also currently it still sticks out quite a bit, so I'm wondering whether I can somehow lower this height whilst still keeping a similar shape and also be able to fit the circuit board within it. So that's the annoying thing. The more that I decrease the height of this, the more of a back that this is going to have. But I'm actually really happy with how that's come out, really along the aesthetic guidelines, at least, of what my users, well, what Balraj and Iran said are the best things that they liked about the last foam model I showed them. So yeah, gonna play about with this a bit more and hopefully make a version that I can actually clip onto the chest belt with the poppers, hopefully. So I've done a bit of CAD modelling and started to put the pieces together, and it's practically ready to go. The only thing that the central panel is now missing is a button, but that's something that I can sort out later, possibly tomorrow. But it's ready to go on the slicer software, so I will set the 3D printer off and see what happens. So it's finished printing now, and I have to say, once I've removed the supports, it's actually pretty good. I have found already that here on the back to get the poppers to stick on isn't too bad. It's okay. It's good in terms of guiding, but this central little, there's no other way of describing it other than like this little nipple bit here in the middle, needs to be bigger. It needs to be extruded more so that it'll then sit further into the popper, so it'll actually hold it in place. So I know I need to play around with that. This has come out very nicely. Overall, aesthetically, I'm pretty happy with this. I want to play around with putting in a push button in here to be able to switch on and off the actual vest itself. I think I really want it, if I can, to be a retractable ballpoint pen style cam system, so that then you can actually feel then whether it's on or off, rather than having to have a visual cue or having to feel whether it's on or off. Good learning curve, but a good start. I think we're not far away with this design. It's good and it's getting there. Excellent stuff. So I got the snap fits to work. It took a bit of pushing together, but they have worked. So the split line here isn't too bad at all, but the split line, however, on the sides is still not great. I would want that to be a lot more flatter, but luckily I've realized that is because there is no snap fit there, so that is why. So all I need to do is add some snap fits there to make sure that that sits in well as well. And yeah, the poppers actually work great. So I've put the belt on like you would have it, and literally it's as simple as just put it on, line it up, and it's on. It's ready to go, and this will be able to work as your heat flux sensor to tell you about what your body core temperature is, and then to be able to influence the rest of the vest. So I'm genuinely really happy with how this is. The button is pretty good. I want to change the design of that a little bit. I still want to keep it big enough though, so that it's nice and easy to press, because it should be as simple as you put it on, you press it down, and that's it. It switches on, and you can hopefully, the gap is being designed in so that there'll be a light, so you can see a light coming through, and that'll be able to be a nice blue light to show you, it is switched on. I'm very happy with this, and this is something I can do user testing with, which is fantastic. So this looks a bit weird. I've got some gardening gloves, and you may be thinking, why have you got gardening gloves, Rob? You've lost the plot. These actually can be quite helpful inclusive design tools, and that's because individuals with MS struggle with numbness. And so that means, from when I spoke to Balraj, it means that when he's holding like his set of keys, so this is a craft knife, but when he's holding a set of keys, he can't actually always feel that they're there anymore, and so he drops them sometimes. And so one way that I can simulate this numbness, at least for me a little bit, it won't be exactly the same, but it's a way of simulating the feeling that Balraj has, is using gardening gloves, because they have a nice thick bit here, which is quite difficult to feel through. And it's a similar method that is used for helping individuals that have dexterity impairments, or even individuals that have dementia. For example, now I have the glove on. If I feel along here at the moment, just even by touch, I can't actually tell where the button is. I generally could press anywhere and I wouldn't actually know where the button is. So it's good because I can feel
just by feel, that there are two sides to this, that there's the bottom side and that there's the upper side. That's the main thing that I can feel. The sides I can't feel that much. But also, more importantly, I can't feel the button. So I don't know whether the button is on the bottom or whether it's on the top. And so this is something that I need to consider in terms of inclusive design of how do you make sure that that button is actually noticeable and something that you can feel and interact with. And this is something just to add, that like so many companies miss out on this. Like when they're designing a product, they'll whack the button in and just make it as simple and basic as possible, because at the end of the day, that is what will be cheapest initially. That will be what they've done for the past 10, 20 years, whatever. So that's what you do. But then that stops somebody who may have a form of visual impairment, or somebody, for example, who has MS, to be able to interact with that product in a manner that actually gives them confidence to interact with that product, or even to buy it in the first place. So this is why I'm so passionate about inclusive design, and it's why it has to be pushed forward. And it's just little things even like this. Of like, luckily, I can feel that there is a bit of a button there, but I can't actually feel it that much. So I know if I improve this, this will make a great inclusive design. So another thing you can do is you can simulate dexterity. So something that individuals with MS struggle with, especially as you get more towards the stage of having primary progressive MS, is the fact that you become weaker, and so consequently dexterity isn't as great. And these gloves that have been created by Cambridge University are able to simulate what that impairment is like to a decent degree. As I said with the gardening gloves, it will never be the same level of what it is like in real life, but it's a way to sympathize and to understand a little bit better of what that interaction could be like. So something I know for a fact is that naturally anyways, if you have a dexterity impairment, it's quite hard to do fine motor control points. And so I can feel that just by doing this movement of trying to push the button this way, that there is quite a bit of restraint on my thumb as well as my index finger. And so doing it this way will not be that bad, which is why the button needs to be big enough that you can do it this way. But at the same time, the interaction of grabbing here is a bit tense. And so I need to make sure that the design of the button is requiring minimal force so that it can be pushed. And then at the same time, having enough force that when you actually push the button, it's because you want the vest to switch on. So that's a balance I'm gonna have to strike and gonna have to play around with. But these gloves are absolutely fantastic to just be able to initially feel like, okay, this is how this needs to work. So we are in the last week of Easter. The central panel is nearly done. That just needs a button changing on it. The battery case holder is currently being 3D printed, so that should be pretty much done. It may come out slightly too big, so I may make it a bit smaller, and that'll be something that'll be done. But one thing that I need to consider as well is, in terms of inclusivity, is the use of this belt. So currently this is a heart rate monitor belt which goes across your chest, and usually you couple it together using this clip, putting it through the slot that is in here, and it just goes together like this. However, this is quite fiddly, as you can see, and it's also something that won't make sense in terms of my interaction. So when you interact with this as a heart rate monitor, you're able to, when you're trying to clip this together, imagine this is on your body, you're able to rotate it round to the front so that you can easily do that. However, this will be attached to my inner layer of the vest. So if you were to do that, you're going to twist the whole vest round and you won't be able to actually clip it together very easily, and so you'd have to do it on the side. And so from my user feedback, I've got to rethink about how this interaction happens, and the easiest way that we can go about this most likely is using Velcro. So I have got some sew-on Velcro here that I'm going to use, and just play about with it to see, hopefully, if I change this up and most likely have to go through this buckle that's on here, most likely, I can then create a length that can be then used to Velcro around. That's something I'm going to play around with and see what happens. So I finished sewing the Velcro on. So there we've got one bit and we've got the other bit. So the way that this would work is this goes onto your chest, it goes round the body, goes through the buckle, and this is how it would be in its current state when it's already attached to the vest. So if you imagine it's already attached to the upper vest here, it would already be like this, so that you can simply just put it behind onto the Velcro. And there, it's all locked, ready to go, fits to your size, you're all sorted. So hopefully that is the same simplicity that I'm hoping Balraj and Irin will find when using this as well. So something that I want to prepare in time for doing some user testing with Balraj and Irin, which hopefully will be later this week, is making sure that I can test about the inclusivity of putting on this vest. So something that was apparent, especially when speaking to Irin, is that with individuals that have MS, especially as you get more into the stages of primary progressive, you can struggle a lot more in terms of dexterity and strength. And so, for example, for Irin, for him to put on a t-shirt or an item of clothing, he most likely will need help. So it made me think about the fact of like, okay, in that transitioning phase of where maybe you still want to be able to have that independence to put the shirt on yourself, or even to help in the case of where somebody is having to put the shirt on for you or the vest on for you in this case, how could that best be done? And so it was understanding the fact of that currently the way that you put on a vest or a t-shirt is actually not that good. It means that you have to get your arms up, it means you have to get your arms through these holes, you have to be able to do it really easily. And so in discussing with Balraj and Irin, it was clear that we needed to experiment with what we could do if we cut off the sides to make the sides openable, most likely from around the armpit area all the way down. But we were a bit undecided of whether we should do Velcro or magnets and what would work out best. And so the plan is that I'm going to do one side of that has Velcro, and then the other side I'll have as magnets, so that then Balraj can put on the vest and start to feel, okay, is it easier to put stuff together if it's magnets, or is it easier if it's put together as Velcro? And that'll be the way that we'll work stuff out and go from there, so that we can come up with a final design, hopefully, fingers crossed. The magnets have finally dried out, the glue has dried out. So they are actually in fact currently stuck together, because of course it's a lot easier when they're laid down to just attract and magnetize to each other. So the plan is, as far as it would be from these side panels, the idea is you just clip from the top, start going all the way down. So already it can be seen that there is a slight issue in the fact of that the magnets do, if they're not strong enough, come apart from one another. It also creates this kind of section of gaps of where you've had it connected together. But other than that, if they didn't come apart, they're actually so much easier to just put together. So I think it's down to whether Balraj and Irin prefer that this is the kind of method you have, but then you have use of stronger magnets, or whether you can get away with just using the Velcro and having that on the side, because that is considerably more secure. That isn't going anywhere. Hopefully it'll come out in user testing of working out what is the best solution. But I'm still really happy that it works, and none of the magnets have ripped off as of yet. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because that was easily the first thing I thought that would happen.
So I'm just currently making the battery casing in CAD, and luckily it's pretty simple because at the end of the day the battery case won't be seen. It's something that's actually hidden away. The only time it will be seen is if the user is using it for charging purposes. So yeah, just making it at the moment in CAD. Very simple shape at the end of the day, and just adding some poppers at the bottom part of it because that is how it is connected. So currently in this football vest, just be able to see there, it uses a popper, and that's how it connects to the rest of the vest. So I'm intending to use that same system again because it is what makes the most sense, to just be able to give the user the opportunity to pop it on and it'll be ready to go. So all I need to do is to give an area left on the battery case for a USB charger to be able to do that, to be able to charge it. So most likely a micro USB slot. And also I need to be able to have a light on the battery case, just so that the individual will know, okay, it's charged when it's green, in comparison to say if it's red and flashing. So yeah, that's something I'm going to get on with now. Awesome stuff. There we go. So that is the battery case holder all put together. Now it is quite big at the moment, so I may look into whether I can use a smaller battery to reduce the size of this holder, because it is actually quite big. Like if you put in the comparison of my head, it is quite big, and I have a big head. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue some popper holders onto the bottom here, so that then I can try it out within the actual football tracking vest that I have. So usually they have a part in the back where that would be where the heart rate monitor is. I want to open that bit up a bit more and see if I can stick this in there, and how easy that is to do, just because I have a feeling that maybe it's not that easy, especially currently with the size of the battery pack being this big. So yeah, this may be something of where we do it and it doesn't work, and I have to go back to the drawing board and redo it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll give it a good test. So originally the seams were only going down here, which made the pocket smaller. I've actually cut them out, so it makes the pocket considerably bigger, which will then allow for the size of my battery. And in fact, I've been playing around with this. It does actually just fit. So this is the only issue, because it is quite wide. It is literally on the extremities of the size of the pocket. But just like that, literally it's really easy how easy it is to click it into the poppers. So it is slightly too big, really, because at the end of the day, this is the electronics, and so it kind of needs to be protected a bit better, just in case of like weather and the kind of environment that it will be in. It also looks too bulky. The whole idea of these is when footballers are wearing the heart rate monitor, it's a very small little bulk that you can see on the back, which in some ways it actually looks quite cool, whilst this I feel would not look that cool. I am going to try this on, but most likely it probably won't look that aesthetically nice. Excellent, so I've got the vest on now. So if you look at that from the back, yeah, it doesn't look particularly great. Doesn't look aesthetically that nice, but I know for a fact if I make it a bit smaller, especially in its height, then you won't be able to see it, and so the aesthetics of it don't matter that much. That's why the design of it is very simple. So I'm going to go back and have a look at battery technology and see if I can find something that is smaller, so that then we can have a smaller case that will hopefully fit nicely into the back pocket for the vest, and fingers crossed it should work out. So going from the back battery holder casing design, it's currently too blocky and it's too big. So going to look now in terms of doing some sketching. Maybe it will look a little poly-art-esque, I'm not sure yet, but I've got some ideas in my head, just need to put them down on paper, see what they visually look like, and we'll go from there. So I have finished the CAD for the back battery holder, and I have to say I'm pretty happy with it. I edited it a little bit because at first it still looked a bit blocky,
but I've tried to make it more angular now. So this is all ready and set up on the Prusa slicer. So yeah, we'll be printing that this afternoon. Awesome stuff. So I've put it all together now, and this is the back battery holder. It looks quite cool, I have to say. You've got your little area there for your LED to indicate of whether it's on or not in terms of charging, and you've got your nice micro USB slot there in the side, and the poppers are on, ready to go for user testing. So I've finished designing the 5th version of the central panel, and basically it's just making a difference in terms of raising the button up further so that that can actually be felt. So hopefully that will help in the user testing. And I'm playing around with that. I'm going to raise the on and off button here. That's slightly more elevated. So hopefully that's something you can feel by touch. And yeah, gonna 3D print this. Should take about 2 or 3 hours, and be able to then see, hopefully once put together, whether that actually works using both the dexterity gloves I've got and my gardening gloves that I have for feeling kind of sensory wise, how well can you feel the button that is there. And if I'm happy with it, then I'm going to use it for user testing with Balraj and Iran. So there we go, the print is done and dusted, and already this just looks so much better. It feels so much better. I can actually feel that that's an on and off button, and it actually has that nice texture. It's nice that it's raised up. I'm really happy. This is cool. This is starting to look more like a final kind of thing that I have in my head. So I'm really happy about that. So I've got the gloves, and we can now finally see how it feels to hold the central panel and interact with it with a slight sensory impairment in a sense. So the difference in terms of the levels of where the button is and where it isn't is really clear, which is fantastic. That means that that's nice and clear, and that at least gives a sense of that it's something to interact with rather than the rest of the surface that's on its own level. In terms of the on and off button that is extruded on the center part, that can be felt more so on the semicircle part of the symbol, less so on the dash line. But I think it would be enough to be able to indicate that that's where the button is. This is ready then for user testing and for Balraj to have a play around with it and see what he thinks as well. And yeah, I'm really happy with that. It just means that it's those little things of being able to feel that with your fingers, even when you may be feeling some numbness. That can be a little bit of a game changer to make it more of an inclusive design and an accessible design for individuals with multiple sclerosis. So I've just been trying to figure this out, but essentially to get this heart rate monitor belt to be attached to the inner layer of the vest that will go on the inner layer, it has to go through some belt loops. But of course, with the placement of this Velcro strap that's going on here, that means that the belt loops, theoretically, if it was done like a regular set of trousers, then belt loops would get in the way and it wouldn't be actually that effective or that helpful. So I think the best option is to initially test with placing them, of having 2 here on the front, 2 on the back, and then going from there and seeing whether I need to have more or whether I can stick with just having those 4. Because I think the more belt loops that there will be, the more complication there is going to be with trying to get the belt to get the Velcro to touch and to get it to have enough contact with the other piece of Velcro to be able to hold it tight to your body. So yeah, that's something I'm going to play around with, but I'm now going to make a prototype version of the inner layer of the vest and see if I can put the belt loops on to start playing around with this and see if it works.
So as you can see, I have finished the setup of the loops here on the inner layer of the vest. So this is lower than it should be because this is a size large, so that it will fit Balraj when we do user testing. But overall, it's actually pretty good, and now it is holding in all the right places. I think both on the sides and the front. I think it would be better if there was a little bit more in terms of the belt loops, but of course it's the balance of how many belt loops do you want and how is that then going to interact with the Velcro, which is on this side. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with it. The last things to do with this is to play around with the shoulders. So I have got some shoulder straps style things that I want to play around with and see if I put these on here, how does that make the interaction in terms of befitting it to your size. And this may be something that means even in fact technically that this large size actually can fit me better by me being able to tighten the shoulder straps. So yeah, that's something I'm going to play around with and see if I can get it to work. And there we go. So I have stitched it all together now. So as you can see, it attaches here and attaches here. Now it does look a bit stupid, but that is because of course these bra straps that I've used are quite thin, and so in comparison to the rest of the vest it looks a bit silly. But of course with the final model it would be using a similar thick strap and it would all make a lot more sense. But it's nice and easy to attach on, and I'm kind of considering of whether it's something you can detach or whether it would be fixed in the first place. But overall really simple to adjust. Overall it does work and it isn't too bad in terms of how it works. But yeah, as a prototype it's a bit rough, but it does the kind of interaction that I want Balraj and Iran to play around with.